Hi everyone, I'm Virginia, owner, artist, and designer of 13 Design, and I create a line of decoupage papers, original decoupage papers. My decoupage papers are hand painted onto vintage music sheets, and you can see that here, and novel pages, just to give them a real unique flair. They come in all different designs and different sizes. This is a triple print. And then I also have single prints, and they're printed onto really beautiful rice papers, and I will show you shortly why that matters. They're just really lovely rice papers. You can see the vintage music sheets there that I use, and sometimes I like to incorporate wording just to make it a little more fun. And I'm really selective about the songs I pick, the vintage music sheet songs that I pick, because I like them to match up with my, my subject matter. So I've got a lot of different designs. Of course, I had to do a cardinal. Cardinals have such special meaning for people. But you can find all of my designs. These are just a few. You can find all of my designs on my website, www.13designart.com. And you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at 13 Design Art. And I appreciate any support that you can give to me and my small creative business. So let's get started. So you're here today because you received this kit as a gift, or maybe you purchased it for yourself. This is the Journal Art Kit, and it's beautifully arranged in here. I've included everything that you might need to create your journal, except for paint. And the reason being is when you purchase this kit, you have your choice of any one of my decoupage papers. So hopefully you picked a good decoupage paper that'll help you customize your journal. And when you select that, I have no way of knowing what you're going to select, so I can't really incorporate paints to accompany that. But most people do have just acrylic paints at your home, and you can see it's a little messy. I've had this for a while. Acrylic paints work great. Chalk paints work great. Whatever you might want to use on your journal. And you don't need to use any paint at all. And I will show you a journal with no paint as well. So the journal comes with your Mod Podge, and I call it Mod Podge. I know it's Mod Podge. It's harder to say that, so I just call it Mod Podge because it's more fun to say. But it comes with a little container of Mod Podge and a brush to apply that if you'd like to use. Of course, you get the beautiful journal. I have one out here already. A beautiful journal. And these journals, I selected unlined journals to incorporate into my kits because that way you have more options. Some people like to do art journals. So you can see beautiful pages that you could write on. You can put stickers on, you can do drawings on, you can use it as an art journal, whatever you'd like. So these are really great journals. So that journal is included. And then also, I've also included some stickers, just fun little stickers, and also great little sayings that you can sprinkle throughout the journal. If you're giving it as a gift, it might help motivate the person as they go along and fill the journal, or yourself, inspire yourself. Why not treat yourself? So this is the great little journal kit, and if you were giving it as a gift, you're creating it and then giving it, you can certainly put it back in the box and wrap it, or not even wrap it. It's a beautiful box. Or if you're giving the whole kit as a gift and you've received it as a gift, what a wonderful way to give a gift. Give the gift of creativity, right? So hopefully you will like your journal kit. Let me just put this back. So, like I said, you've received your journal. So we're going to get the journal out first. If you've decided that you would like to paint the journal, I'm going to grab another journal too. I'm going to paint one journal, and I'm going to leave one journal plain so you can see that you don't necessarily need to paint it, and they turn out just as beautifully. I'm knocking things off my shelves over here. I'll clean that up later. And I actually will, because I just organized my studio and I'm trying to keep it organized. Wish me luck. So I'm going to open the second journal, so I'm going to do one as a painted journal and one as a not painted journal. So you can see that you don't even really need paint if you don't want to use paint. So I've got two journals here. I'll start with the painted one because that'll need a little bit of drying time. So I'm going to set this one aside. For my design, for the first design, I'm going to use the sunflower. I previously did sunflower journals and they were a huge hit. People love sunflowers and they have a lot of special meaning for people as well. The nice thing about the triple print is you can choose what size that you'd like to use. So you could just use a small one and kind of center it in the middle. You can use the larger one, which pretty much takes up the whole front page, which is the one that I'm going to use because I'd like for it to cover the whole front page. And then for my other one, I'm going to use the larger sunflower print, and I will show you what I'm going to do with that. So to start, I'm going to just cut out the journal, cut out the decoupage design. Actually, I could start painting it first. Maybe that way, and then it'll have time to dry. So I'll cut it out in a minute. I'll get this started because this is going to take a minute to dry. Because it is the brown paper, it will wick up the paint pretty quickly. So I'm going to just use a white acrylic paint. So when you are using decoupage, I always suggest using white paint in behind the decoupage. It just helps keep the colors their original brightness. If you put it on something dark, and I don't have anything dark here to show you, but you can imagine if you put something dark behind this, it's going to mute down the colors a little bit. If that's the look you're going for, then great, go ahead and paint something dark. If you'd like to keep them nice and vibrant, I suggest using white or a real light color behind the decoupage paper. So I'm going to do white today, and I'm actually going to need to paint both sides of this, but I'll get started with just the one side here. Let me find my favorite brush. Okay, so can you tell this is my favorite brush? I do clean my brushes. The bristles are fine. This brush is probably 15 years old. So I keep my brushes for quite a while, but it is my favorite. So, and I'm sitting here today with my coffee, bravely putting my coffee next to my paint water. So let's hope that I don't clean out my brush in my coffee. It is still morning time here, so I need my coffee. All right, so whenever you're painting, you're gonna want, and I didn't clean my paint palette since the last time I used it, so I'm just gonna make sure that I put the white paint into where I had the white paint previously. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the white paint in there and just get started, because this will be the painted journal. I'm gonna just put a little squirt of water in here because this paint I think is actually a mixture of acrylic and chalk paint. I had a little bit of chalk paint left, so I just kind of stuck it in there. But I just want to thin it down a little bit because I don't want this to take forever to dry. But like I said, it's going to wick into the brown paper, and therefore it's going to dry pretty quickly. So you're just going to want to do a nice even coat, and the even coat is key here when you are decoupaging because you don't want any lumps or bumps. If it's an older paint and like little dry pieces kind of fell off when you were pouring it into your paint palette or onto your paper plate, just make sure you pick those out because any little lumps or bumps that are behind the decoupage will make the decoupage have a bump in it. Like here I have a little bit of a bump, and I'm just going to go ahead and get that out. And yes, I'm using my finger. Art is messy. If you're not getting messy, you are not doing it correctly. So in one of my tips of the day, sometimes I do little tips of the day on my Facebook page, was when you are painting or decoupaging, don't wear anything that you truly like. I actually like this sweatshirt. I have paint on nearly everything that I own. So I am pushing up my sleeves in an attempt to keep it off of my sleeves, and I'm wearing my apron. So if you are wearing something that you like, make sure you cover it. And make sure that you cover the surface that you are working on as well. And I need to push this back a little bit to make sure my table is protected. All right, so this is actually starting to dry already. I'm going to paint the whole thing, and you will see why when we start blending in the back. So I'm just going to do this for right now. it needs to dry a little bit before I can lay it down and paint the opposite side. So I'm just going to kind of lean it up here. And then with the one that we are not going to paint, and make sure that my hands are not going to get transfer paint onto the unpainted book. With this one, because like I said, it is the paper backing, we are going to need to use some Mod Podge to start. And that's just to kind of seal it up so that when we put the coat of Mod Podge down that we would like to adhere our paper to, it doesn't soak in too quickly and not allow us time to affix the paper properly. So we're just going to put a coat of Mod Podge on this. Again, a thin, even coat. And we're going to let this coat dry. And the reason being, again, is so that it kind of seals off this surface that is known to kind of wick up the paint and make it dry quickly, which means it'll also make the Mod Podge dry too quickly. We just want to make sure nice and even, again, no bumps, lumps, anything like that, because that will become very apparent when you put your decoupage paper down. And you can kind of just slap it down like I am and then go over it with your brush to make it smooth. You just don't want to keep continually going over it because it will begin to dry and then you'll cause lumps and bumps and all that fun stuff that we don't want. So again, I'm doing two examples just to show you one way that you can do it without paint if you don't want to paint, and one way that you can do it with paint. And the design is really, the point of this kit is to customize this for yourself or for a gift for someone special. And you'll choose the decoupage paper that you want to use. So hopefully that you did that. All right, so you can see I just have a nice thin coat and it's nice and even. So I'm just going to put my brush down here, sit my little cup over here, and you always want to, I'll show you, I buy my Mod Podge in gallon size. When you buy the smaller containers of Mod Podge, and I have one right here, you don't want to dip your brush down into the container and use it because you could contaminate the whole jar. For example, if you use it on a painted surface, let's say you painted it red and you're putting Mod Podge over the red surface. You know how red pigment is. It sometimes will lift up onto the brush, and if you're dipping it back into the container, suddenly you have a pink tinted Mod Podge. If you like pink tinted Mod Podge, then go for it. Most people don't. So you always want to pour your Mod Podge into a separate container for use. And then when you're done with it, if there's some left and it's not tinted pink, why go ahead and pour it back in. Or you can use these great little cups that I found with lids, and then you can save it, and maybe the next time you use red paint, you can use it on there. But I'm just gonna let that dry. I think our paint is already dry. Like I said, it wicks in pretty quickly. So I'm gonna go ahead now and paint the opposite side. I'm just gonna flip it over. It's still a little damp, but that's okay. And I'm just gonna do the same thing on the back side here. And again, you can kind of slap it on and then just smooth it out with the brush as you go. I like to do it as I go because, like I said, with this brown paper surface, it does make the paint dry pretty quickly. So you have a little bit of time, but you do want to work efficiently, work quickly. And again, make sure there are no little pieces of dried paint or anything kind of showing up here because we don't want that to be the problem for our decoupage paper. And it doesn't have to be perfect. This is just the coat of paint that goes under our decoupage and under our painting. If you decide later that you like the way that the white looks and you want to keep it, why then I would suggest that you do another nice coat, because with just one coat, you still have a little bit of the brown paper showing through. Okay, so you can see that it's a nice even coat. Put my trusty brush down here, and I'm just going to move this over here. Now you can use a hair dryer to dry this a little quickly. I do have my heat gun here, which dries a little bit quicker. I just have that here because of for time's sake. So if you need time for yours to dry, you want to walk away and let it dry, go ahead and pause me and walk away until it is completely dry. You do want it to be completely dry. So as I'm touching this now, it looks dry to the eye, but it is not, because I can feel there's still a little bit of moisture here. So I'm going to need to dry this. So I'm going to go ahead and get my heat gun. You do not need a heat gun. My husband's a contractor, so we have a heat gun. If you have a hair dryer, that works just as well. And I'm going to dry this. I'm not going to talk much while I have this running, because I've tried to do that in the past on my videos and my voice gets drowned out by the sound of the heat gun. So I'm just going to go ahead and dry it, and then we're going to talk on the other side. So just take a few minutes. If you have a hair dryer, go ahead and just dry it so that it doesn't feel, to the touch, it doesn't feel damp. Oh, and also try to keep your paint away from it, because this will dry out your paint. I guess I will talk a little bit. You want to make sure to keep the hair dryer, or especially a heat gun, constantly moving. If you hold it in one spot for too long, it will cause the paint to cook and bubble. I speak from experience. I used to refinish furniture and I've had that happen. So keep it moving. Going to also dry the Mod Podged journal. If you can do two things at once, enjoy your coffee. And make sure you dry both sides and the end. Just use touch to see if it's still damp. I'm going to just set my heat gun aside and let it run while I quickly paint the other side of the plain brown with just the Mod Podge. Again, we're not painting this one, we're just using the Mod Podge that comes in the kit. So if you do not have paint at home to use, that's okay, you don't need it. And I will show you why in a moment. If you get any glops, get them out of there. We don't want them underneath of our decoupage. Always smoothing, always making sure that it's a nice flat surface. And again, this is just to seal in the brown paper that tends to wick up the paint or Mod Podge very quickly. In order to adhere our Mod Podge, we're going to need the layer of Mod Podge that we put down for the decoupage to stay wet long enough for us to attach the decoupage. So this is just to make it so that we have a little bit of time to work. We don't need a lot of time, but we need a little bit of time. And again, just smoothing it down, a nice thin coat. And if you have any that's kind of glopping over the edges, just use your finger and clean it off. And then I left my heat gun running because if I turn it off, it goes into a cool down cycle, and I want to be able to dry this. So I will now finish. Again, keeping it away from your paint. It will dry your paint. Constantly moving. Going to keep the painted one close by, so if it gets some of the heat, it'll continue to dry as well, but it's pretty dry here. Now I'm going to lean this here so it continues to dry. I'm going to turn this off. It will go down into a cool down mode, and so you will hear it, but it'll be off. I'm going to sit it far away. Hopefully it doesn't interfere and you can still hear me. All right, if you have your coffee, take a sip. So, making sure that your surface is clean, and I'm going to stick my Mod Podge brush in the water, not my coffee, just so it doesn't dry out. And I don't mind leaving it in the water short term. Don't leave your brushes in the water long term; it will ruin your brushes. But leaving it in there for the short term, because when I pull it back out, I do want it to be a little damp. I'm going to make sure I put my lid on my Mod Podge. In your case, you'll be screwing the lid tight. All right. So, we're going to do the painted one first. And for that one, I've chosen the larger of the 3 prints. So, I'm going to find my blade here. If you don't have a blade, you can certainly use scissors. I've decided for this one, I'd like a nice blunt edge because I'm going to wrap it as much as I can onto the front portion of the journal. So I'm just going to cut along the colored edges. I don't want any of the white to show. And the nice thing about this is with the triple print, you still have 2 little ones left, so you can use them elsewhere on the journal, or you can use them maybe to make a nice little greeting card for someone or another little project. Use it on a little sign from the house for summertime or fall. Sunflowers are good all year round, really. They don't really have a season, do they? In my first house, I had sunflowers in my kitchen. Maybe that's why I love this design so much. It reminds me of my first kitchen, my first house. Make sure that your blades are sharp. I love these. These were just cheap little blades that I got, and you can snap them off as needed. So if it's not sharp, I can just snip it off, and then I have a brand new sharp blade. So I kind of like that. I do like the X-Acto knives as well, because they're a little more precise, but for what I'm doing, this works fine. And I have my little trash baggie here. I'm just going to throw my trash, the wrappers from the journal. Okay, so once I have this cut out, I make space for myself here. Once I have this cut out, I want to make certain that it fits. Okay, huge tip. You want to make sure that your journal, you're putting it on the right side and the right way, because you don't want it to be upside down or backwards or whatever. So, and then these journals do have like a little page bookmark. So if you'd like that coming out the top, you're going to want to make sure that that's the case as well. So I'm going to do this upside down for right now, so that I can make certain that I'm putting it on the way that I want it. And I think I'm going to center it. So I have a little bit of the white. I don't measure. You can measure. I am an artist and I don't measure. I eyeball, and it looks pretty good to me. I don't think anyone's going to notice if it's off just briefly, just slightly. So this is how I'm going to put it, and it fits perfectly on the front here, so it doesn't really, I don't really have to do anything else if I don't want to. So that's nice, just to give options. So I'm going to grab another one of my Mod Podges because this one was getting kind of low. And I'm going to pull out my little Mod Podge brush. You want to get a fairly good sized brush, or some people prefer to use the little foam brushes. They work just fine. What I have found is they tend to wick up a lot of the, soak up a lot of the Mod Podge, and then you have a lot of waste unless you squeeze it out. So you might come up a little short if you're using a foam brush. So I just prefer to use brushes. It's fine. It works great. So again, I'm just going to put a little squirt of water in here because this is from a previous project and it's a little bit thick. We want to make sure it's nice and thin so I can easily add this. And because it's from another project, I have a little bit of a skin here. I'm going to pull that out. There we go. But like I said, if you have these little containers with lids, or like a Tupperware, if you have one of those that you use, or a Gladware that you use for your projects, you can just go ahead and use that. All right, so in order to adhere this the proper way, so I have it on here so that my book opens this way. I know it's upside down for you. I guess I could turn it around now that I'm certain that I have it the right way. I just wanted to make sure that it fits. If you want something smaller, you can go ahead and cut it smaller. So it's entirely up to you how you'd like it to look. So I'm going to go ahead and put another thin coat of Mod Podge on here, and I want to work fairly quickly. This is where we're going to stick the decoupage paper, and so we need the Mod Podge to be wet because it is glue, in order for us to stick the decoupage on. So you want to work fairly quickly. By watering it down a little bit, that'll help keep it wet a little bit longer. Okay, so I've got a nice thin coat. Thin because if it's too thick, it'll soak into the paper and make it bubble and wrinkle. And I'll show you how to keep it from doing that. With this size, it's fairly easy. All right, then I had it on here previously, so I have an idea of where I'd like it to go. You can pick it up and reposition it if you need, but I had it pretty well where I wanted it. I'm just going to go ahead and smooth it down. There are little scraper thingies you can use. I know I have one somewhere. I thought I had it close by. There are little scrapers that you can use that have like a felt edge that will help you smooth papers. I prefer to use my fingers, just because that way I can feel if there's any wrinkles or bubbles. But with something as small as this, it's a little bit easier to use, or to get it down without any issues. Not that there won't be issues, especially if this is your first time trying it. If you've gotten a little too much Mod Podge underneath, it might go ahead and wrinkle, but we're just going to kind of rub it as it dries. And I'm going to bring my heat gun back in. If you have a hair dryer, that's great. What the heat will do, because the paper is damp now, as it heats it, it shrinks it. So if there are any wrinkles or bubbles, sometimes this helps pull them out. So you're going to want to use your hair dryer or your heat gun. So I'm going to grab mine. And the whole time I'm doing this, again, you want to keep the heat gun, if it's a heat gun, moving around. And I'm just going to continually rub. I don't want to burn my fingers, but I'm going to continually rub the paper to make sure that I'm not getting any wrinkles or bubbles, or if I had any wrinkles or bubbles, that they are coming out. This rice paper is very nice because it is thin, but it's not too thin. It's not tissue paper thin or napkin thin, so it's a little bit easier to work with. Pay special attention to the edges because you want to make certain that they're adhered so that it doesn't peel up later. That feels pretty dry, slightly damp, but it's pretty dry. So I'm going to set this aside while we go ahead and do the journal that I'm not painting. Let's sit this over here. Okay, so you can see it's really pretty, and honestly, I could be done at this point. And if you like how it looks, then maybe you've decided you're done. Okay, so for this one, I want to use, again, sunflower. Sunflower is the design. I'm going to use the larger one, right? It's the larger print. Why? Well, because I'm going to cut it out. So I don't want to use the background. I've decided I'd like to cut it out. So I'm going to find my scissors, and I could use my blade, but I think I'm going to use my scissors. And I need to get an idea of where I want this situated so I know how far down I need to go here. No sense cutting out area that I don't even want on. So I might kind of score it. Just taking my hand and scoring at the bottom here to get an idea of where the bottom of the journal is, so I don't bother cutting this out because that won't even be on it. Okay, so to start, I'm going to cut my leaf. And again, this is just an example of one of the ways that I can do this. Another way is to use my water pen. Here's my water pen. And what a water pen is, it's a brush with a water chamber, a chamber that you fill with water. And as the water comes out onto the brush, you can outline your paper. And I'll do a little demonstration here just to show you. And it just gives the design a nice soft edge. It's just a nice option. And with the rice papers are beautiful. They've got so many great fibers in the paper. So when you do the soft edge, the fibers really show. And that's what makes it such a soft edge. So I'm just going to cut this out. I want to go around the whole thing. So if you don't want to watch me cut this out, you can fast forward it, or if you too are cutting out your design, why stay here and chat. And I'm just taking time to do it. Maybe you want some of the blue to still show, in which case you would cut a little bit wider around, a wider area around the flower design so that you could see the blue. I'm doing this to show you that you don't need paint or anything, so anything other than what's in the kit. So I'm not going to keep any of the blue because I want to show you what happens when you cut out the design in its entirety. It's a really cool effect. And meanwhile, my painted one is still drying, you know, completely dry. Normally I'd give it a little bit more time to dry, but because I want to not hold you up for hours and hours on end, is just a fun little project. If you're doing it by yourself, I hope you're enjoying yourself. If you are doing it with friends, hopefully you're all encouraging one another. I notice when I do these videos, I get a real like teacher voice. Why is that? I don't know. I don't mean for that. It's not intentional. I'm usually pretty loud. So I don't know what's with the soft voice. It's like my announcer voice. So decoupage is really great. You can use it on just about any surface. In fact, here in the future, I had requests to do a lampshade. So I will be doing a lampshade. I have a pair of shoes that I bought that I'm not so crazy about. And so I'm gonna see if I can jazz them up into something that I do like. So I will be doing shoes. You can do cloth, you can do clothing. I'm actually going to be redoing my apron here. This is just paper that I stuck on until I could get one made. I'm going to decoupage my logo onto my apron. So really anything, signs, Christmas ornaments. I'm trying to think of what else I've decoupaged. I've decoupaged so many things. Oh, a wine bottle gift. It was a round box that I did, which was fun, just to give it a little special. Greeting cards. I mean, anytime you send a greeting card is lovely. I mean, who doesn't like to receive nice mail, not bills? But especially if it's a handmade card. It's kind of a lost art, getting mail, isn't it? Getting and receiving mail. Almost done here. And it might not be perfect because I've been chatting. I do have trouble doing just one thing at a time. All right, I'm gonna stop there with this. I'm gonna throw out my pieces. And then I'm actually going to get my blade out to finish because there's some areas that are kind of on the inside. And I could leave them. I could leave the blue here, but I'd like to cut it out. So I'm just going to use my blade. And I have a matte surface here. So if you're doing it, make sure whatever surface you are cutting on is well protected. I used to use, before I had a mat years and years ago, I would just make sure I put a little bit of cardboard down, something from like a packaging box. Good way to reuse your materials. So I just want to cut this out. There we go. Nope, missed this a little bit. Put that away. Let's see. Oh, yep, I have here. And again, if you are doing it for a gift or for yourself, you might take a little bit more time, a little bit more care doing it. I'm trying to do it in a timely way, so I'm doing it a little bit speedier, so my cuts might not be perfect. Okay, so now that we have our whole flower cut out, we're going to put it on our journal. And as you can see, it looks really great with this background. We could paint a background. We don't have to. We can just use what comes in the kit. So look how great that is. So all we're going to do is make sure that we're putting it on the right way, right? I'm going to put a thin coat again of Mod Podge. Thin, even coat. Working fairly quickly. We have a little bit of time to play with. Thin, even coat. I'm just going to make sure it's nice and even. There's no little dried pieces of anything stuck to it. And then I'm going to place this exactly where I would like it for it to go. And I kind of want it to wrap around the side. So I'm going to place it right here. And then gently use my fingers to press it down. Again, you can use a little scraper with a felt edge. It's not really necessary. So I'm just going to do the front at first. This will wrap around the side the way that I'm designing it. You don't have to. This will wrap around the side and some of the back. But for right now, we're just going to get it attached to the front. And then what you can do, even though we're going to put on a finish coat later, you want to make certain that the edges are adhered without getting your fingers all messy. You can go around and gently just make sure that all the edges are pushed down. So I'm not really gluing them at this point. I'm just making certain that they are all attached to the glue that will attach them, that will dry and attach. Okay. Then I'm going to get my heat gun again, and again, while moving it all around, I'm going to dry this. I'm having to make my video in parts because apparently my phone storage is gone. So I've got to deal with that. So this video is in parts for that reason. And again, just using your hand over it to make sure there's no lumps or bumps or anything like that. But because of the smaller size, it's a little bit easier to manage. And with the nice rice paper, it's a lot easier to do this without getting any unwanted lumps and bumps. We're going to put a final thin coat of Mod Podge over top of this to seal it and just kind of keep it protected. It will make it water resistant, so if you're out walking with your journal and it gets a little spritz of rain or something on it, it'll be fine. It is water resistant, not waterproof, and we would never expect a book to be waterproof anyway. So just get it all dried up here. I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to set that aside so it can continue to dry. And I'm going to bring back the painted one. Like I said, we can just let it go the way it is, or we can paint it more, add color. We could blend in the edge, or we could just leave it just like this. We could add some stencils, different stencils and things. You could personalize it and add a name to the front or even to the back, put a little saying on the back. There's many different ways that you can customize this. So think about doing that. You can use your stickers. You can put them throughout the pages to encourage whomever you're giving it to, or if you're keeping it for yourself. As they turn the pages, they might find a little saying to encourage them that day. If you are giving it as a gift, I always encourage people to write a little note in the front about what you appreciate about the person and give it as an extra special little surprise inside. But otherwise, you can be completely done with this, or you can continue on painting. If you want to keep the white, I would suggest a second coat of the white, and then always, always, always seal it up with a thin coat of the Mod Podge on top of the entire thing. So we're going to do that to seal it up and make sure that all the edges are nicely adhered. But I did want to show you real quick, if you wanted to blend in some of the blue here, let me just set this aside. I'm going to get some of the blue here, all different blues that I have. I'm using like this blue, I have a light blue that I'm going to use. A teal. And of course I will need a little bit more of my white to blend it in. Okay everybody, so I'm going to show you how, if you want to, you can blend the background of your decoupage paper into your book. So if you like it like this with the framed look, that's great, or you want to paint a different color around the edge and kind of give it a frame, perfect. if you want to blend it in, I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can do that. So with this particular one, obviously they are shades of blue. So I'm just going to use a stiff bristled brush, not a soft. I have some that are very, very soft. That's not going to work. So I'm going to use a stiff bristled brush. Also a crunched up paper towel will also work, but this time I'm going to use this. So I'm just going to kind of go along the edge here. And it's okay to go over. In fact, I suggest you go over the edge of the paper as well. And I'm just going to kind of go along. And this is, it might look intimidating, but this is a technique that really is very easy to do and hard to get wrong. I mean, really, there is no wrong. So I'm going to just go around the whole edge here. Again, going over onto the paper, because you're not only blending in the background, you're blending in the paper as well. So I'm just going to kind of take this around, and you can see it kind of blending. I'm just going to take my blue over onto the paper so that it blends into. So you can kind of see how that's going. I could let it go just there, or I'm going to add a little bit of the teal, which is kind of the look that's already on the paper. And again, I'm just going to go around the edge with the stiff bristled brush. You could use a paper towel and go along, but because this is such a small edge, it works a little bit better with the smaller brush option. And I'm going to go ahead and get some on my leaves and stuff, and that's okay because I kind of like the look of it. If you didn't want to get it on your leaves, you'd be a little bit more mindful around them so as not to do that. But I'm just going to keep going around the edge. And of course I'm going to add some white because there is white throughout the print itself. And because the way I do the backgrounds on the prints, doing this stippling method, it works really well. So I purposely did the backgrounds so that they're a little bit easier to blend in. You don't have to give it a whole lot of thought, and it's kind of fun. And when I say this is really hard to screw up, I just mean like you're gonna just keep going until you like the way it looks. So you'll just layer and layer and layer and layer until you like where it's going. And you can see it's really starting to blend in, and you don't really see the edge of the paper anymore. And like I said, I did take it over onto my leaves a little bit. You don't have to. You could actually extend the leaves out if you wanted to and paint them further using greens. You can do whatever you want. Or paint a frame around this and really make it kind of like a framed piece. But I really like just kind of blending it in a little bit. And I'm pretty happy with how this looks. And so I'm going to go ahead and carry it out onto the edge here. Same method. A little bit too much blue there. I'm going to do some of the teal. And it's good to do it while it's still wet because then they really kind of blend together. And I kind of take it up around the sides of the front and the back. So I kind of finish off this particular one with some white. Any of my designs have a fairly easy background to blend. So now I'm going to show you that I already did the back. So that is already drying. I'm going to go ahead and let this front dry. I could hit it with the heat gun, but I'm gonna just let it dry while I show you what I'm gonna do to the journal that I'm not painting. So you can see like what a difference, right? So you can make one for yourself, one for your friend, one for all your friends. So I'm just gonna lay that down here. I'm gonna let that dry, make sure I don't have paint all over my hands. So I transfer onto my dried piece here. So the front is now dry. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap my design around the side. So I'm just gonna paint again a nice thin coat, And then I'm going to just, with my fingers, press it around. And again, if you want to make certain that the edges are down, just kind of use your brush a little bit. But because it is glue, it does kind of adhere pretty quickly. And you don't need to worry about it too much. And we will go over this whole thing with a coat of Mod Podge as well. And then I have just a little bit left here to go along the back edge. I could cut them off right there and just be done with it, but I kind of want it to wrap. So, and for this, I'm just gonna, because there's not much left to wrap, I'm just gonna use my brush to wrap it and really kind of just do the second coat all at once. The leaf is a little bit bigger, so I want to make sure that I have that attached. And I will do a final coat over the whole thing, but with these little pieces, you want to make sure that they adhere. So those are wrapped around. Isn't that beautiful? And again, you could put a little saying on the back. You could handwrite it with a Sharpie marker. Because this is already protected, it won't soak in. You could do a stencil, pretty much anything you'd like. Now on the front here, I still have the leaf that hangs over. I can wrap that around and glue it right inside, or I can cut it off. And because the sides here wrap around, I think I'm gonna wrap it around, but I don't want it to wrap too far into the book. So I'm gonna go ahead and just snip off. I'm gonna kind of eyeball it, snip it off straight. And then I'm going to stand it up here. I'm just gonna put a little bit of Mod Podge along the edge here and then fold it around. And it just kind of continues that look of the wraparound that I have with the side. See, it's wrapped around. Isn't that beautiful? So this is just using the materials that are in your kit and no need for paint. So I'm going to go ahead and put my final top coat on. And this really gets the edges. So I like to go back and forth to really make certain that the Mod Podge is getting on all the edges. So I'm a little bit more aggressive with the top coat, but I will ultimately smooth it down. And you can make this slightly thicker because you're not laying anything on top of it. But you do definitely want to smooth it down. Again, I'm a little more aggressive because I like to get it along the edges of the design a little bit better. That's just to make sure that all the edges are indeed laying down and adhered. And you can have your book laying down. I'm just holding it up so you can see what I am doing. It's a little bit harder to paint when you're holding the book. And again, just smoothing it down so it looks like a nice finish here. And if you have any along the top edge or the bottom edge, just kind of run your finger along. And then I'm just going to put the final coat on the edge here. You want to wait till it's completely dry, and this dried pretty quickly. And just make sure you don't have any excess kind of hanging out. Okay? So that's going to dry and be beautiful. Again, I can add a stencil. I could write a name to personalize it. But my biggest thing is if you're giving it as a gift, just open it up and write a little note or something that you love about the person inside. It just makes for a nice little added surprise for the person. They'll already be surprised at the gift, but they'll be even more surprised when they open it up. Okay. This is pretty dry. Normally I would let it completely dry, but in the interest of time here, I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit more from my big gallon jug of Mod Podge. Again, I'm going to pour it into here because you don't want to contaminate, and especially in a big gallon size, I don't want to contaminate any of the Mod Podge that's in there. I want to keep it nice and fresh and new. Okay. And I'm going to finish this off by putting a nice finish coat again, nice and thin and even, paying special attention to the edges. So this one wasn't cut out as far as like the entire image, so my edges are around the top and bottom here. I'm just going to make sure I get them really good, because I want to make sure that this doesn't come up in the future. You know, if someone's using the journal a lot, carrying it around with them, you don't want the image to suddenly peel up. So we want to protect the journal so it's beautiful for years and years and years. And if you notice as you go, anywhere that's not completely adhered along the edge, maybe you didn't pay extra special attention, now is your time to make certain that that edge is adhered. And just kind of push it down with a little bit extra. Well, extra love, right? Again, if you have any drips or excess, but you're going to do the entire thing. If you've painted the whole thing, you want to make certain that you put a top coat on the whole piece. And I will also do the back once the front is dry. So that is the just an example of what you can do with the journal kit. You certainly can do, there's so many more options, and you're welcome to watch some more of my videos that show some more ideas, but these were just 2 ideas that you can use with your Decoupage Journal Kit, and of course only an example of one of my designs. So depending on which design you chose, your journal will be customized for your use. So thank you so much again for joining me for this project. Let it dry completely before you go sticking your fingers all over it. And thank you so much for your purchase of my art kit. And thank you for supporting my small creative business. Again, you can find my kits online at www.13designart.com, and please follow me on social media on Facebook and Instagram at 13designart. Thank you so much, and happy creating!